once you've lived in it for a while, oh my god, is it miserable. Hey y'all, cheers. Okay, the last quick hot chocolate here does not taste good with like water. I didn't really feel like boiling milk, so I tried it with water and not nearly as good. So, oh well, I'm doing this. I know I didn't record it, but that's editing Obi. Instead, I used a old clip from yesterday's video to show me making hot chocolate because I didn't want to record in common spaces, especially with like the people there, like the other roommates and whatnot. So we are going to talk about one of the holiday books I've read. Also, I know this is coming up on the 5th. I think at other points I mentioned other things coming up on the 5th of December, but timing wise, that's getting pushed back a little bit so I can do some other activities to kind of bulk up that video. But let's get started. The book that we're first going to start talking about is called A Novel Christmas. Here's the title. Cover. It is by Charity Shane, and I got this book from the library. I have been using Libby so much. If you go get library cards, if nothing else from any of my videos ever, please go to the library, get a library card. You can get multiple library cards because you can check in your states and you can get multiple library cards like for different cities. Please, it's great. It helps the libraries and you're saving money because you're getting a book, then you're not paying for it. Also, sometimes you find new books that you never would have looked at before. I was curious of different holiday books, and so I tried this one out because I was like, oh, I haven't heard anybody talk about it, so let's try it out. It was something that I enjoyed. If you're wondering, this was my favorite rating for it. And I'm saying what it was now because I read it a couple of weeks ago and I did listen to it via the audiobook, which I did really like. Editing over here because I was realizing that I forgot to tell you, with this book I would probably, it is definitely open door. There are multiple scenes towards 40% in onwards. It's about every couple of chapters that there will be a scene, at least one. Also, it is a dual POV, just so you guys are aware of it. I listen to audiobooks a lot on my way to and from work just because that's something for me to do. I take a bus and it takes about 30 minutes for me to get from where I was living to my office and back. And usually if I was also going shopping or something, I'd listen to the audiobook because I don't have data on, so I can't listen to other things. Okay, so a little bit of a summary. I'm also looking at my notes here. It's about an author whose name is Saira, and in this case, she's written a couple of books, and she's with Brownstone. I think Brownstone, yes, Brownstone was the name of the publisher, and she was oh, I want, her last book had not been as successful. The publisher was you need to come out with a 5-star read, not this 4.5-star read, or we are dropping you. And so you need to come up with a Christmas story. And she's like, I don't do holiday stories. I don't do that. But she's okay, I'll do it because I want to stay with Brownstone Publishing, because also in all of this, not all of the characters, but pretty much all of the characters are Black, and a lot of this also talks about the Black experience. So just so there's always kind of this undercurrent of Black community, Black excellence, all of that. So she's okay, I'll write a Christmas book. She finds Santa Claus, Indiana, which is an actual place. Here's what it looks like. I had been wanting to go there actually when I lived in Kentucky, but I never got around to it because Indiana is not a crazy drive, but it's about 3 hours. And actually from Lexington to Santa Claus, it's about this long. So take with that what you will. Y'all know I have done a lot more driving, but still. So she goes to Santa Claus, Indiana, and that is where, and she gets this Airbnb and she really likes it. And that is where she meets Dorian Black, who is the male main character. He is a volunteer firefighter who also owns a bunch of rental properties. He was formerly part of the NFL, and he falls in love with a woman who worked for his agency, his management agency, and they get married. It's all happy, and then she is diagnosed with breast cancer and sadly passes. And she is from Santa Claus, Indiana, so on her, as she was dying, she wanted to go back to her hometown. And so he goes, they move there, they have a house, and she passes and he stays there. We learn later on at points he was kind of self-destructive, and that is why he joined the fire department. Is he was not trying to he was very much willing to die if something happened, kind of in that slightly self-destructive, self-preservation. There was no self-preservation, and the fact that he is a widower kind of interplays through all of this. And in this whole thing, they describe him as a very fine man who had posed for the calendar as Mr. December. So that's sometimes what his nickname ends up being, is Mr. December. But he is not interested in dating. He took his vows very seriously and honestly was treating it until till death do us part, even further than that, for all of eternity kind of thing, and would visit her and whatnot. And honestly, I find that very sweet. It can be, as I said, this kind of becomes the main problem. Not in some ways a hang up. So in all of this, they meet because she's renting from his Airbnb, and he's actually staying at the same duplex because he doesn't want to be at the house for Christmas. So they end up meeting because, again, in Santa Claus, Indiana, there are very few Black people, and honestly in most of Indiana, especially in the rural areas, there are very few Black people. So they meet, and there's this kind of instant connection, and she's just very much feeling it with Dorian. He is having kind of these mixed feelings because he feels guilty for moving on, which, again, many people who are widows and widowers do feel that way, of is this bad that I'm moving on? Is this okay to do, kind of thing. And in Dorian's case also, his late wife was an orphan. Her parents had died in a car accident when she was a teenager. So that also in some ways makes it a little bit interesting because he doesn't have that family pressure from her family to stay single and in mourning for the rest of his life. But everybody else is really trying to push him to move on, and he's kind of I don't know. So in this whole thing, they have just these different holiday events as they slowly get closer and closer together. Things a bonfire with the other people from the other Black people in the community that's at this cabin, and that's kind of where they really start to start feeling each other. Then they've got things a Christmas parade that gets canceled halfway through because massive amounts of snow, which does happen in that area. And Saira is originally from she is from Florida. She's from Miami. And so she's I've never seen snow. And so there's some very fun scenes with her wanting to kind of explore and make a snowman and do snow angels and do all of the snow things, which I can very much relate to. Since when I first moved to Minnesota, I had seen snow, but I'd not really gotten to play in snow. And so kind of getting to see it as it falls down, and it looks so beautiful. Once you've lived in it for a while, oh my God, is it miserable? But granted, December, it's never miserable, but in March, it is so miserable when it is snowing. You have all of these different activities, and they're really falling in love with each other. But spoilers, there is this thing of he's never really fully able to commit.
Spoiler territory.
In the end, they do end up together. He spends about 6 weeks because she is so frustrated at him. She gives him all these chances to really talk about his wife more and talk about the house that he has with his wife, because she's been told about this house and she's what's going on? He's not letting me in, because the house is really just being a metaphor for his heart. And she just leaves. She's I'm okay, I'm not going to give you this other chance. I'm going to just keep going. I'm going to be, if this is not going to work out, how can I know that you will commit if you're not going to tell me everything? And so in kind of a flash forward like 6 weeks, he starts going to therapy and he's like, I'm not fully I'm all better, but kind of I'm all better. And like in the epilogue, again, spoilers, like they get engaged only like 8-9 months later. And I have a lot of things about it. I forgot to mention that in this whole thing, because like I said, Saira is a author. She was apparently a very like beloved romance author. So a lot of the other women in the community are like, wait, you're that Saira? Oh my god, we love your books. And so they have a whole book club thing, which definitely helps her. Like they have these whole conversations about like the couple in the book that is a little bit divisive, because apparently neither of them are great, which again, I think this is acting as kind of the like what route they could have gone down for like Dorian and Saira. I thought it was a fun book. It is definitely spicy. I found it interesting, the terms used for a couple of body parts. It was like, what? Okay, apparently this is also a term for that body part, but not one I would use or I'd ever heard of before. That was an interesting one. And I noticed in all this, Saira does not change much in the book. She gets a little bit more confident because she finally calls out a different ex-boyfriend of hers to be like, no, you get your stuff that has been at my house for way too long. Go. And that's actually kind of where the final conflict happens, because she's like giving back her ex all of his stuff and he's wanting to stay, and like he's effectively trying to cause more issues, and Dorian shows up as like a man in shining armor to like help. But I was like, this, okay. But yeah, she does not change much, but also honestly she didn't really need to change much. The other thing that I found kind of, she was a little bit, actually, and this was both of them actually, and I don't know if this is just typical the like writing for the author, but there was sometimes it felt like with the writing it was like, I did this and then I did this and then I did that, with a lot of like brand name drops, which I was kind of like, oh, okay, I'm okay with a couple, but like it just felt like specifically it was a lot of things to try to show how rich they were or how well off they were. And then the other thing was like, she makes a lot of comments of like, yes, I did my like weekly bathing in honey and milk, and I was like, okay. A lot of the just like very similar but different to how in like Mary Sue kind of writing of a character of like, I'm so gorgeous sort of thing. With Saira, yeah, she did not need to change much. I just sometimes found some of her dialogue a little bit posty, I guess, but so is Dorian's. The amount of times they also like talked about the different like liquors used, and like, oh yes, another thing as editing OB here, part of the reason I had the hot chocolate was because in the book multiple times the characters are drinking hot chocolate. Half the time they also have like Kahlua in there, which totally agree with. There's a lot of different types of alcohol stuff that was mentioned in the book, which I kind of, there was one specific that I was like, ooh, is this actually a thing? Because it was like a eggnog whiskey drink that I'm gonna have to look up again to see if I can find it, because if that is the thing, I want to try it, even though I can't actually try it here in the state, in Belgium, because also like eggnog's not really a thing here, which yeah, they have a version of it, but it's like a pudding. Also dropping the name of like a Creed perfume, which like Creed costs about this much typically. I just don't know if that is more common to like drop the names of brands or not in books where like this was not written for me at all, I'll be honest, and that's not a bad thing. I don't know the Black experience, so like there are things that are part of the Black experience culture that I'm like, I don't know, I would fail at Black Jeopardy, which is the whole point of the like book, like the sketch, like Black Jeopardy. But I wanted to kind of diversify my reading, and so like that's why I picked it up to like learn. And then with Dorian, I mean, the big thing is I wish we learned more about his development in terms of going from being still very heartbroken about his wife's death to being able to just like hop on a plane to Miami to go profess his love to Sa'ira, because like that really would have been an interesting thing to have, like not just like, oh, I went to therapy, actually have more of that discussion about therapy of like, no, how he's working through it, more conflicts, having somebody from the community, because like his late wife was from Santa Claus and that was a very tight-knit community. Having more people from the community who maybe knew his late wife when she was alive, like as a teenager, to like have them be like, it's okay, like if, because like they mentioned, okay, the parents are both dead for this, like the late wife, having somebody who would have been like an auntie to her be like, hey Dorian, it's okay, you can move on, like having somebody step in and be like, you don't need to worry about, like that I think would have been a very useful thing, like or having any of like play cousins or whatever who really would have known her, like his wife, his late wife, because again also she was an only child, so there was no family connection, but they are so focused also on the like the close-knit part of the Black community in Santa Claus, and I'm like, there had to have been people who really knew his wife all growing up who could have stepped in as that like family. We only have that discussion a little bit of the hospice nurse who had helped take care of his wife in the like last days, who was Black and from the community, and her daughter is Crystal, who is like kind of Dorian's little sister. So I'm like, there's could have been more, I think, to really address the mourning aspect of it, because I think the grief would have been, is a great thing, because it is a conversation you think about of like any sort of like widower situation, grieving. I'm like, it's a like something that I think could have been dealt, like expanded on more in the book that was not. So what else did I think? Like I mentioned earlier, with the writing style, it was a lot of I did like that, and that was very choppy and kind of rough, and it got repetitive very quickly, and I really would have appreciated more like internal dialogue or more external dialogue between different characters to have built up the relationship more between them. Also, like I mentioned, how they talk a lot about the community and the Black community in when there's only like 3% of the entire population is Black. Like you see that a lot, and I'm just like, why was that not brought in for the grieving aspect? Because like you have the ladies who have the book club, and it's like this very fun like group of women who all love Sa'ira's books and have some really great conversations about these characters, because like in the Sa'ira's most recent book, they don't really get a happy ending, so it's not really a romance, because like a romance is supposed to have a happy ending or a happy ending for now. Like they have the conversation of like, yeah, he cheated on her, but she forgave him, so it's like, well, if she forgave him, she really is not allowed to bring it up again. That kind of conversation back and forth, and I really liked that. And like the fact that they have the like football team stuff, so like Dorian was the coach, like a volunteer coach for this football team that is of like the Black students from like the surrounding areas, and he'd really taken on one of the kids, and I really liked that relationship. He saw a kid who he was like, okay, how can I go about helping him without letting him think he's just like a charity case? And he'd really stepped in, acting as like an uncle. And that again would have been a great kind of having some more conversations about it, not just like especially having conversations between the one student and Dorian about love. That would have actually been a really interesting idea, as if also he, like the student, had been in love, because they had the conversations a little bit about football, because it was this thing of like, oh yeah, you're good enough to go do like college football quite well, but you also still need to do your degree. You can't just like sign on not doing it. You need to have a degree so that you can continue to make money and do something like get your real estate license. And I liked that conversation, but I'm like, you could have also actually had a really interesting conversation about love, because he would have been questioning, like, they probably would have had this conversation about like maybe first love versus like kind of having that like love after grief. All of those would have been a really good thing to kind of build in more of that community aspect that they were missing, like that was always alluded to but was missing in some ways to the book. Would I recommend this book? Yeah, I enjoyed it. I think I want to read more books kind of that like style. I need to read more books with like black male character, like main characters, both male and female, books that have very few or no white people. Like I said, I think this book really, I don't think there was a single named white person except at the very end, maybe. I forgot which TV show she was on at the end where she's like announcing her book, because like she writes a book that's effectively her whole like story in Santa Claus, Indiana, although it was with a cop, and I was like, really, you decided to go with a cop? Sure. Okay. There's just so much that I really enjoyed. I don't know though if I think they would be together, because we don't know what their dynamic is like at all, because like he had so much work he needed to do that we just did not get told about at all, because they pretty much also had like instant lust, because that's the whole thing. It was pretty much instant lust. Like he's saying, no, it's not lust, because like he wants to get to know her, which yeah, that's great, but also like you can still have instant of like, you don't know her, she just seems more intriguing than whatever women you'd had hookups with, because he had acknowledged like he had hookups beforehand, which is like totally cool, fine. People have needs. That's just generally a thing. That's the thing. Like I said, I keep on going back to, I think the grieving aspect is really interesting, and I don't think they go in depth enough about the grief and then moving on and finding love again. But yeah, I know I keep on going back to the grief, but I think it can be such an interesting topic, but I don't think in this book it was handled super well. It was very, very surface level and not nearly like handled with kind of the conversation and care that I think it probably should have been, or like, and not even nuance. I think there is just so much depth that you can put into it, because it can so greatly change the relationship dynamics. And with the relationship that we were seeing between Saira and Dorian, we're only getting like, they're both just like, damn, you're hot. like damn, you're hot, okay, you seem pretty sweet, but like we're not knowing a lot about the ins and outs of their life. That's just kind of my thought. I think I would recommend it though, especially the audiobook. I really enjoyed the audiobook. Both narrators were great, and also I think it's a good one if you are like, we all need to read more diversely. Most of the time when I'm reading like stuff written by Black authors, I'll be honest, it's mostly nonfiction stuff where I am reading books about like anti-racism, the science of racism, education, that kind of thing, but also like just Black joy. I need to read more of that. I need to read more books where both there's sad stuff and happy stuff written by a diverse group of authors. I hope you liked this first like book review. Please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.